Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
what's up, rock stars?
Hi.
How are you?
It's so good. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good.
It hasn't even been that long since I've talked to you. This
I
is
know.
amazing. You guys are just crushing.
I know. It's crazy. I didn't actually think we'd be on here talking with you again.
I love it. Any opportunity. This is awesome. So, Andrea, congrats on Nolan's. You destroyed it. It's incomprehensible to me how that can be done so fast. Like, I just barely get it. And you work a full-time job. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're wrong.
Okay. You don't work a full-time job.
No, I work part-time.
Part-time. Okay.
So
So
she complains about it as if she worked 80 hours a week. So,
what a slacker. So this summer for you, Manitou Incline, set the record there, set the record on most 14ers climbed in 24 hours. And then you took that fitness to Nolan's this year.
Yeah.
And you guys have a huge history with Nolan's 14, and you went out there and just destroyed it.
It destroyed me.
Oh, come on.
She's barely getting her voice back. So,
I
mean, it still sounds different.
My voice has been like, this is the first day I've actually been able to speak words.
Okay. I can tell it's a little raspy.
The other morning we woke up and, sometimes if she's mad at me because I don't understand something, she'll like raise her voice and then I'll be like, why are you yelling at me? And then she'll I'm not yelling. Well, I don't remember. She was trying to raise her voice at me and all that came out was a little mouse squeak. And I just laughed and I was like, can we rehash all of our old arguments right now? That would be amazing.
Oh my gosh. I love it. What destroyed your voice out there? Was it the smoke from wildfires, or was it just dry in the air, or what happened?
The air ended up seeming pretty darn good, right?
The air. So the first day, I think, so a cold front came through, and talking to Chris Tomer, he said that there was probably going to be some mild to moderate smoke all weekend, and so I think the last day it was actually pretty clear. The skies were so blue, but I think it was just going so hard for so long. And honestly, I was already coughing by massive. And then the last 5 miles, they made me run so hard, which I don't regret, but I think I was like crying and coughing and miserable the whole 5 miles that I was running. And then that night, I actually really couldn't sleep because I was coughing so much. And so I think that may have done some damage to the vocal cords or something. And then it was probably the next day I still had my voice, but the day after it was completely gone. So I'm just getting it back now, which is kind of nice.
Okay. Well, good to hear.
Yeah.
Andrew, are you feeling left out of all this action, or are you happy just to sit back and drink coffee and watch all this happen? I mean, I know that you're highly involved.
They worked so hard to get me to that 45.
You wouldn't believe, since the last time we talked, we told you that this was sort of, the plan. And then, but I think I might've alluded to this about how Andrea is just so non-confident in herself sometimes.
Right.
Where we're all sort of from the outside, it's like, oh yeah, you can do this. It'll be easy. Look at what great shape you're in. But for her, she does not have a lot of confidence. And so actually, it was like almost right after we were done talking to you. And she immediately was doubting herself. Her training wasn't going that well. And so she convinced me to do it with her. In fact, she may have even told you, she told everybody, because the way her mind works is the minute she has a thought, she immediately texts everybody in the world, like seconds. And then the next morning when she changes her mind, she's got to text out everybody the new plans. And then I'm just like, stop. Just just relax. And but basically, she was just too nervous to do it by herself, so she went out on this one training day and it didn't go that well. And so she texted me.
It was actually horrible. Like I was putting out numbers that I had no business being up on the Nolan's course. Like it was just
bad. That bad. They were actually pretty decent, but they just, like, for example, it was like we were hoping that she could do, Tabawatch to Ontario in 2:30. And that wasn't a big stretch. We did it in like 2:28 when we did our 53-hour time. So I was actually giving her plenty of time, but she went out there and did it in 3 hours. And so it was like, holy crap, what is going on? But then there was also some like rain that hit her afterward. And so I don't know, there was that. And then she did a Mount Morrison where she did do a double, but both of her times were in the 40s. And that's just not good enough. She's like her good times like in the mid 30s or something. So yeah, I was kind of like, now what is going on with her as well, And so I was like, fine, we'll do it, but let's go north to south, because that way's, the times are like a lot softer that way. For some reason, no one's given that way any love.
No one likes north to south anymore.
No kidding. Yeah.
And the time's like 49:30. That's Joe Grant's unsupported time. I was thinking, well, maybe we could go after that time and just try to get a co-ed time that we could see if we could get under 50 at least, And because I mean, a 45 for me, I finished like 5 or 6 times on Nolan's, and 3 of those, my best times were in the 53 hours. So I'm pretty consistent, So I wasn't thinking like a 45. I was like, we'd be a lot slower. Plus, that way it's just so different, like you're on different areas in the nighttime. And, I just don't know that way as well. So it would have been fun. So I started thinking about it.
And we were thinking that no one goes that way, because actually looking at all the peaks and how their routes are going north to south, you're actually, it's harder. I swear. It's
like
hard.
It's harder. Like just thinking of the routes. Yeah. I'm like, well, it should be about even. But when I was really thinking about it with her, I was like, yeah, now if I like thought about every one, I was like, some of those routes they just seem to work better, at least for the way we like to go. Like, for example, What's an example? Like
Albert, it's like, or La Plata.
La Plata.
Yeah. So,
La Plata is a good example, probably, because it's like.
So it's like if La Plata going north to south, you're going like 4 miles on the standard trail to get to the summit, and then super steep down, not that long. But going south to north, you have a super steep up, which doesn't take us very long, and then we can jog the long downhill.
I think that's what we decided was that we prefer steeper, rugged to climb those, I guess, for us.
Yeah.
I don't know, but not forever. I don't know. The more I always go back and forth on it. But anyway.
I'm right.
Yeah.
So you guys prefer steep and rugged on the way up, and then a trail that you can jog down.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So like for Princeton, going up Princeton would just be like a total bear, because you spend miles and miles and miles and miles going up. Yep. And it's like, and then also like, the crappy terrain, we also prefer going down. So like going down, getting off of Tabawatch, it's really like loose and crappy. Much better for going down than trying to come up a steep, loose, and crappy couloir, where you're taking 3 steps up and 1 step backwards.
Right.
And so I just feel like the routes work that way. So anyway,
we'd have to do a whole podcast just to analyze that.
Yeah, I think we could. Yeah.
No, we don't have time for that. So anyway, so I convinced him to go with me. I sent out a poll on Instagram, and I was like, they claimed I was swaying the audience, but I wasn't. But I was like, who wants to see us go together, like as a power couple? And then I was like, who wants to see Andrea go alone? No one. And so the majority were like, hey, go as a power couple. That would be so cool. So I was like, see, Andrew, everyone wants to see us go together. And so.
And at first I was like, not super thrilled about it, just because she is in good shape. But I started thinking about it. Like, okay, let's go after try to beat 50 hours. And then I went out and I had like a couple of PRs and just runs around the house, so I had my best time at Morrison. And so I was like, okay, I could make this mental shift and start thinking about that. So that was kind of where we were at. And and then she's just so weird because I was there, like just because I was there on Morrison, I got my personal best and she got like her personal best or just missed it by a second. So it's just so weird how mental she is about if she's got somebody with her, she just does so much better. And, she just starts doubting herself.
Perform better. Like I get in my head a lot when I'm by myself. Sometimes, I mean, the 24-hour record, I was by myself for over half of it and I did really well. So it just depends on what type of mental condition I'm in. I'm a very, like Andrew, he's very consistent. He'll pull, and he does better when he's pissed off actually, but he's very consistent. Like I'm consistent, like on like my training runs on North Table, that's whatever, but I'm not, it just really depends on my mental condition, on if I'm feeling sad, that I'm going to put up a bad time, So anyway, so I was super excited that we were going to be doing this together. Like I had put Nolan's like away it mentally, like I was done with Nolan's mentally. And so when Andrew brought up like, hey, you should go back to Nolan's, I was kind of like, no, I'm not going back to Nolan's. Like that was done. That was a 2020 thing. And I was actually a little burned by that, but we don't have to go into that. And so I was like, let's move on, like bigger and better things. And then,
but right after the 24-hour record, that was when we kind of joked about how like the minute she hops in the car, I'm like, Andrea, you got to look at these numbers, and I'm numbers in front of her. And so I was really excited about getting her interested in again. So like last time we talked to you, it was like, kind of like, okay, we're going to do it, but she says now that she wasn't totally on board.
I wasn't. Like when he suggested it out loud, I was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, babe. He didn't know that in my mind, I was like, yeah, right. No, that's not happening. So then I got excited thinking that he was going to be joining me and that we were going to be going north to south. I was like, this could be a really fun thing. We can get our names on south to north, have our names on north to south. That'll be perfect. Fantastic. We'll go together as a couple, keep our couples thing going. And then, so we were out doing some scouting the weekend before, and he ended up with a kidney stone, and it was like hell on earth. It was one of the worst nights of our entire lives. It was horrible. He spent 7 hours throwing up and just in this delirious state. It was horrible in the ER. And so in my mind,
you've had a kidney stone, but man, they are brutal.
I never have. I've heard how brutal they are.
Yeah, horrible. And so like I tried to convince him to still do Nolan's after that.
While I'm in the emergency room
you'll be fine. This is temporary.
Right.
And he wasn't hearing that. So then I had to think
it was like my free ticket out of jail card. It's like, sorry, I got a kidney stone.
You're on your own. We joke and we're like, that's God telling you you're not supposed to be doing Nolan's with me.
Right. Okay. So, so Andrew got a kidney stone, and then was it immediately shifted to you, Andrea?
Yeah,
kind of like there was, if she was still going to do it, there's no way I could do it. I'm just thinking about like, what if it wasn't done? There was no guarantee I was done with the kidney stone. I peed out a couple grains of sand and I was just like, there's no way that's what caused me all that pain. And I guess it was, because I think I'm done with it. And
really,
so it's kind of, it really, it humbles you when you see something that small turns you into a blubbering mess. It's terrible. So yeah. So anyway, she was on her own, at that point. She may have harbored some desires of still convincing me to do it, but I knew there was no way, at all. So, but I didn't want her to quit. I didn't want her to be like, oh, well, now I can't do it either. So I'm not sure exactly. That was like Monday, and you had to do it starting on like the next Saturday.
Well, so our plans were to do it on Friday. And I think for whatever reason, we decided to start on a Saturday. So we just pushed it back one day. We already had Dan flying out from Minnesota.
Yeah. So Dan, he's a guy this summer, he did the self-supported 14ers record.
Oh yeah.
And so he's experienced with the 14ers, and he's really, the self-supported man, there's a lot of planning that goes into that, right? Of like a lot of planning, and he's got a great vehicle, and his dad knows the 14ers really well too. So he was excited about helping us out. And so he's actually quite a master of like logistics and stuff.
Really?
And,
did you guys know him beforehand?
Well, no, I only knew him.
Not really.
He called me when he was about to start his record. He was asking me about, making sure he was interpreting 3,000 foot rule correctly and stuff like that. So we talked for a couple hours, and so we kind of became friends through it,
Yeah. And then we knew that he was going to come out and help us with Nolan's. So he had flown out the weekend before as well, the weekend that Andrew had his kidney stone. And we did Massive together, and he was supposed to do Columbia Harvard with us. So we had hiked a couple times with him previous to the record. So yeah. So then,
now we had shifted into, we were like, okay, well now Andrea's on her own.
We had to find a full support crew, full pacing crew. I've never used pacers before ever.
Right.
That was something kind of foreign to me. So I was like, it's kind of uncomfortable at first, if you don't really know, like,
for sure,
how it works. Just kind of like, oh, do I talk? Do I not? I can't really talk when I'm working hard. Sorry. Right. Should I listen to music? Do I not listen to music? I don't know. Like, what do we talk about? So
we were trying to like make this like full on support. Like, one of my beefs with the FKT website, especially when you apply it to like a Nolan's, is they've got a supported category. And, in the old days, when I counted my Nolan's run supported, it was because someone drove around and there was a water bottle waiting for me at a place to drive in. And so now I'm supported, right? Whereas, or you can go on the full on supported where you've got people with you the whole time carrying your pack, showing you the way if your brain is tired. So
and it counts as the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same. So I feel like there needs to be like a paced or guided category to make it fair, but whatever, they had to draw the line somewhere. So it's all supported. So, hey, if we're going supported, we're going all in supported. We wanted to, Dan was talking about, like, Dan, he may actually have he may be on the line of like over support.
He could work his support crew a little too hard.
He might
probably.
go a little hard because he was like thinking, okay, we're gonna have people up on this mountain and we're gonna have people up on that mountain. And I was thinking, man, the amount of effort to get support crew like up on
for a water bottle.
When they're gonna bring up a water bottle, and then what happens? What if that person doesn't come around and now I'm waiting on them and I gotta move? I was starting to think, man, that could get a little complicated. So it was kind of perfect because he kind of balanced me out where and I have a maybe under supporting. And so I felt like we kind of compromised when we were talking about everything, and we really came up with a really great plan. We were just missing. We had some gaps in like where she might be alone and stuff. And so that's kind of where we were. Andrea and I, we made up these spreadsheets, and Dan made sure that I had made notes on all of these transition areas of like, what do we want at this transition area? So all the different things, which usually was pretty simple because, one thing, it's funny, if you look at Nolan's, you'll notice that the two fastest times, both directions, they're both unsupported, which in the old days, that seems kind of weird, because when I remember the first time I did it, I was the first person to do unsupported, and people were kind of shocked. Wow. He did so good unsupported. Well, it turns out, if you look at it now, it kind of thinks like you have to be careful because support can actually really slow you down.
It can waste a lot of time. It can waste a lot of time, right? Yeah. You come in, you sit in your chair, they're waiting on you, then you're starting to get sore, they're taping up your feet, you're changing out your socks,
Oh yeah, I had a buddy once and he got to Avalanche Trailhead and it was dark and cold. And, my friend Lisa and I, we were like, okay, time to get out of it.
He was in the nice warm car.
Kind of giving him a little shove and he's holding on. He's like, no, it was like, he's like, I'm not going out of the car.
So my goal for Nolan's was to not sit down. I didn't sit. When I got to the support station, I, like with the exception of after Missouri, but I was just coming in, I was getting my liquid calories in, I was changing out water in my pack, getting my food, and we were out of there. Changing out.
But she wasn't doing the changing out. She was just stopping, drinking, and walking. And then we were like a flurry. We're just like trying to get her bag stuffed, and so she didn't have to stop because just even in one little stop, your legs are going to burn for that. You know, it's like your legs, they don't want to stop. They just want to keep moving is our theory.
Anyway, we digress. So we can reel it back.
Oh, well, just getting back to like the support crew. So then, Andrea just started, like contacting people and getting, like, for example, was Joey and, the guy who holds the speed record overall for Nolan's with the ridiculous 41-hour time.
Campanelli.
And so she contacted him, and he's been struggling with some post-COVID issues for the last year and a half. And but it just so happens he was in the area and he wanted to help out.
Oh, wow. He was amazing because like I had messaged him. So I was basically throwing out some text messages to people who I knew have had history on the Nolan's course, who were fast enough. And people that I thought that I would be able to trust. Like I didn't want to go into Nolan's depending on anybody on the route, but I wanted to have enough trust in someone where if I didn't want to think mentally, I didn't have to, and I could just focus on their feet versus the thousands of feet that I had to ascend to get to the top. So I wanted to trust these guys,
Totally.
And, so I sent out some messages over Instagram because I don't really have anybody's contact information. And Joey got back to me, and I didn't expect him to get back to me. I mean, he lives in Utah. I was just like, yeah, this is a shot in the dark. Sure. And he ended up being super excited. And then it was kind of a back and forth, like, yes, I can. And then shoot, I'm having repercussions. And then no, I can't. And then yes, I can. So we actually didn't really know that we would have Joey for the attempt until like the morning of, where it was like, are you feeling good enough? And when it came down to it, he was like, I'm going to suffer either way. So might as well, just have some caffeine and suffer with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow. Because he was a great pacer. I mean, it's nice to have somebody who is faster than you, who can stay ahead of you, but know that not to go out too hard, and not kill themselves in the beginning. Right. So he just has experience with all of that. And so I just thought that was really cool. And then,
so we scheduled him for the first section, thinking he could keep up with her. And then if he didn't show up, she's practiced that section. So it wouldn't have been the end.
Many times,
she could have done it on her own if he didn't show up. Or he was even worried about hurting, and then he was just going to come back after Tabawatch, maybe. He wasn't sure,
Yeah. Okay. And then Dan, and so then I also had Dan, and I had Dan for Princeton and Yale.
And we put him in for Princeton and Yale because, Yale has always been one of our tough spots.
It's been the bane of our existence. And so we actually found, like, we scouted it like 5 times before this go around, in like the last week. And so we knew it, but
we zeroed in on the airplane.
Okay.
I've always avoided that in the past just because you have to drop an extra 500 feet. But, but I hadn't done it for years and years and years and years. But now that we really like there's the ridge up Columbia, the nice little straight direct ridge up Columbia, the airplane gully just lines you up perfectly with it.
Perfectly.
So, and then Dan was really like, oh, it only takes me an hour to get down there.
Yeah, and we were like, it takes you an hour. We were like, hook us up with that.
Yeah. So and it was fun.
We ended up finding, like, I actually really have grown fond of that route now, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but I really, just because I love where it throws you out onto Columbia. And so anyway, so then Andrew, going back to your original question about how you felt coming into this, right? That was like the very first question he asked us. He did the night leg with me, including Huron. And so that was Columbia, Harvard, Oxford, Belford, Missouri, and then Huron. And we were hoping that he was going to hold up for that. And
I was really nervous going into it. I think all the guys were. Like, Dan was really nervous about his section. None of us want to screw it up,
Sure.
And I've never been a pacer before, really. I mean, we've done stuff together, right? But it's never been like where I'm just doing this for someone else. And that's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure on the pacer.
Yeah. Yeah. And Joey was even making comments later of like, well, you can't screw up my section because then it'll look like I didn't do my job.
So then I got Joey back for I had a friend, Jamie, for La Plata, and she's an endurance athlete. And then I had Joey for Albert, and something that he said to me on Albert was, this was kind of when we knew that I had it. I just had to finish. And he was like, well, I knew that if you didn't succeed, then I wasn't successful in my part. And it just made me sad to hear that, because I knew how hard these guys worked for me. And that's like, hey, if I don't succeed, it's not anything because of what my crew has done, you know. That's not on them. They were amazing. And so
but looking ahead, so after I was going to take the Columbia to Huron section, then we were like, well, maybe we would have people meet us on top of Belford, and then Dan was going to meet us at Cohesi Lake. And then, but the last 3 mountains were kind of in the air when we started. We knew our friend TJ was showing up, and he had anywhere from like 2 to 5 people that were going to come with him, because he's looking at doing like a Nolan's Run too. Okay. And he knows people in the Leadville area. And so I just didn't know. And so I was like, well, don't worry about Andrea. We'll just figure it out like when we get there.
We didn't really have much of a plan for the last mountains.
Yeah. So we sort of was like, it'll be 2 TJ people for La Plata, Albert Massive. That was kind of the plan going in.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that was the team. So we sort of had the team all sort of figured out now.
We kind of had that figured out before we went out there. So that was
how many people on the team?
Well, so in the end, I guess technically there would have been.
So we had Riley was really awesome. Yeah. Riley was our photographer, videographer. He's so cool. Like he was with me on the 24-hour record.
Gotcha.
So it was Dan and his dad, Forrest.
Yep.
And then me, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Joey.
Yeah.
And then later Jamie,
TJ, Josh, and Riley.
So shoot, what did that come out to?
That's like 8 people.
Like 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Okay.
Riley's brother was there too. We forgot to mention him. And then don't forget how like Evan just showed up and came down.
Yeah, it was cool. Like we had a friend, Evan, that I saw on the top of La Plata, and he wanted to surprise me. And so he came down with Jamie and I on La Plata. So
that's almost like 10 people.
It's really cool. Like the amount of people that were there to support me, to actually like suffer for me. Like, I mean, we're talking like on Yale and Princeton. I mean, Dan suffered. I was so happy that he was going to be done after Yale, because he was like dry heaving and just like, I mean, he was suffering.
He does that. Like, I remember him talking about that when he was doing the
GI issues. Record. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Dan, like, I can't believe it. Like, he's just flew in from sea level, and he's just like, he's, working so hard to keep up with me, and I'm like, wow, humbled for sure. I'm just very appreciative of my crew. So
he had a tough job too, because she was still pretty fresh there, And he had to do Princeton and Yale,
which are two huge peaks.
Oh yeah, huge. Yeah.
Plus, you got the heat on Yale.
Yeah.
When they got there.
It was nice that we got Antero done early enough, so Princeton wasn't in the heat, which is nice. Usually Princeton's in the heat, but then I got Yale in the heat, so that's not much better. But
so anyway, so we've got our team now. We got the team all lined up, and basically, the deal is we're not stopping. And it's really cool talking to Joey. Because man, I really love that guy too. He's like, he's got this like magnetic personality. He's the sort of personality when you're talking to him of like, you just believe, I mean, anything he says, you just believe you can do it.
Really?
You believe he's really got this, like you're going to be able to do it. It's like, it's a piece of cake. And he also, it's really funny. He was talking about the routes and how he's got a photographic memory for it, And I was like, what's the opposite of that? Because that's Andrea. It's like,
I know. I have to scout the routes.
It's like, delete.
It's like, I have to scout these routes 30 times before I'm confident in them. And Joey's like, oh yeah, I did that once last year. I remember that rock.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So anyway, and then the last thing was, we had watched, this girl, Laura Kaplan, do an attempt earlier. And she did this like, intriguing little move going up Shivano, where she avoided a big switchback and ran all the way up the Angel of Shivano.
They did the Angel.
And, always, in our vein of like, always, it's a lifetime of work
scouting.
trying to always get
we're trying to find the best line, so
we'd seen that they had a really good time going.
They had a great time. They had like a 240
or no, 140,
or I mean a 140. They had a 140 going up Shivano, and And so we were like, wow,
we should check that
we need
out.
to check that line out.
Yeah,
And
we didn't
so
have time
we ended up checking it out the day before, or like the night before when we got down there. And it was like just getting dark on us. And we were like, let's just get through the trees, get to the Angel, and just see what kind of terrain we're up against. And we ended up not liking it.
Yeah,
so
just in the dark, you know, it would have been super easy to like turn left and hit a wall of like down logs. So
and we were like, let's just stay on the trail where it's nice and smooth. It'll go fast. And then we ended up, our splits was like a 155 up. And so that was good enough for me. I was supposed to hit a 2 hour going up. So
okay. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, she gets up in the middle of the night at like 4 p.m.
Maybe we should let him ask his
Oh
questions.
yeah, I'm sorry.
No. This is fine, you guys. So the start time was like 4 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yep. 4 a.m. on a Saturday. We got up around 3 o'clock, and it was pretty smooth rolling, actually. I was a little nervous I wasn't going to be able to sleep at night, so I usually take NyQuil before these big things. Took some NyQuil, and I actually ended up sleeping.
Oh, you know, it was really funny. So actually 2 other people were going at the same time. So there was this guy, Justin Simone, and maybe you've heard of him. He's known as
I know him. Yeah.
Long Ranger. So he just, it was really cool because we got there, we meet Joey, there's Justin. It was so cool. You know,
it was
cool
fun.
People here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, he was going to be starting at 1, and you know, he's like true Boulderite, right? I don't think he owns a car. So
guy bikes everywhere. Yeah.
And he didn't have a ride lined up afterward. He was going to be like hitchhiking home, but he was like, but it was perfect because we were there, so we could take his gear at the beginning. And actually, we still have it in the van.
Yeah, it was fun to be able to help him out.
And then, you know, meanwhile, you know, some other people were going to be coming north to south, you know, so it was like, you know, it's like a lot of people hitting Nolan's at the same time.
Yeah.
But so in the morning, he knocks on the van at like 1 in the morning because I told him to. I was like, hey, I want to see you off, you know, and so he knocked it. He said, all right, see you guys. And sadly, I was just like sort of too out of it. I just shook his hand through the window and said, good luck. I didn't really come over and give him a proper send off. So I feel kind of guilty about that. But yeah, it was kind of cool to see him off. And then we knew Andrea would be after him, you know?
Yeah.
Nice. I didn't know that Justin was out there that weekend. Did he must not have finished. I didn't hear about it.
He didn't. He said he was doing okay. And, you know, he got a great video of Andrea coming down Antero, you know, when she was in high spirits, and he posted that. So that was kind of cool. But then I guess he said he just, even though he felt fine, he was moving like molasses is what he said. And so he just decided to call it after Princeton.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we're back to where Andrea's getting up. And so, so we're all up and we're ready
we're all
to
up and rolling.
And, you know, it was, we like even numbers, you know. You use a lot of, your brain burns a lot of calories, right? So if you start at, say, you know, 347, then the math gets really difficult.
It's so complicated.
You know?
We're like, just start on a round number.
So we sat around, you know, we were going to go for, Andrea was ready to go at like 340. So we were like, well, we could do, you know, 345. But then Joey was kind of in his van. And so we sort of just like, you know, stood around, and so in the end it was great. We just started at 4.
Well, and it's perfect, like at 4 o'clock on the dot, you know, and it was perfect because it made the math so easy. And when you're thinking about splits out there, your brain is already slow, so it just makes it really easy.
It's probably like an extra 20 calories.
Yeah, I know.
Right? You have to think about that, to subtract 13 from everything. So anyway, she gets going. And so her and Joey head off into the night, you know?
Okay. So did you have a pacer with you the entire route?
I did.
Okay.
Route. So the only place where I wasn't sure of having pacers was going to be Shav through Antero.
Okay.
So I was prepared to do that by myself mentally. But then
Joey was there.
It was great because Joey was there. So I really lucked out on having people with me coming out and doing it all with me. So I was really, really lucky, which is, I'm following suit of what they've done in the past. You know, it's like, you know, if that's how the previous records were set, then then I'm like, then I should be able to set it doing the exact same thing,
I feel like there was a time when the rules said like no pacers or something.
Well, it wasn't rules. It wasn't rules on the site. It was like, this is how we did it. Feel free to do it how you do it.
Or back when it was an actual event, it may have been no pacers, and it sort of evolved over time, like it was, Matt Mahoney, he was sort of, like, I don't know, he's sort of like the bookkeeper for it for all the years. It was like, you just do it however you want. So it sort of evolved. But yeah, so that, like we mentioned, it was like we were going all in on support,
So all in on support, but what exactly does that look like? And what is the difference? Is your pacer muling your gear for you?
Well, we had a little bag and it had sunscreen, it had athletic tape and some wipes, and the pacer. So she's still going super lightweight, right? But yes. Yeah. So that bag had to get transferred always. And then Andrea had made up a bag of food for every single leg. And so the pacer or whoever was with her would get this little bag with her food and then those 3 items I told you about, and then we would transfer. So that was something we had to remember to transfer.
And then what I always carried on my back was my water. I always wanted my water on my back. I didn't want to ask them for water. I don't know when I'm going to want water.
I don't know how that works with most people. Like, because it would be so nice to not have a pack at all, right? It'd be like, if you're really going all in, you could go no pack. You could go no pack. And not think, that would be amazing. But she was concerned about having to ask for water. So her pack was still just in water weight. It was still heavier than I wanted it to be. I wanted to get that off of her, but she was determined to always just have control of her drinking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. How much water are we talking about?
1.5 liters.
1.5 liters. Okay, perfect. So that's pretty lightweight.
Yeah, well, and then the pacer person would always have like the ability to get more. That never happened though, right? Like they never actually stopped. Yeah, we were trying to make it so that that takes time, right? Just if you're gonna filter the water, you have a steri pen or whatever.
The only time that happened was in between Tabwash and Antero, at the river down there. Joey stopped to get me some more water. And he actually had a hard time catching back up with me. So I wanted him to feel good on the way down Antero. So I had him wait at the saddle and I summited Antero while he just kind of sat there. He rested, just hung out and just got to rest his legs a little bit. So same with Dan. I knew that Dan was going to have Yale. So I had him any place where there was like an out and back. I tried to have my crew wait. So I had Dan wait at the saddle of Princeton while I went to go summit. So,
okay.
So I just figure, it would just be, a great time for them to just recover a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So what's the route down Antero that you guys are taking? You're not taking the road, I'm guessing. You're cutting that off.
Well, we did.
Every time you ask a question like that, you know that we've tried multiple ways.
Tried
right?
For sure.
So, yeah. So my original plan was to drop right off the summit. But when I did that last, I didn't like it. It's so crappy.
Yeah, there's opportunity of twisting an ankle.
It kind of put some fear into me. I'm like, that terrain is fine if I'm not racing. And so when I had done it the other week, it was like hailing on me. And I just was like, this is crap. I hate this. I'm not going to do my best on this terrain. And so I was like, I'm going to backtrack on the ridge and take the mining road down.
But she didn't, not the long road. There's that little like shortcut mining road. And so that's the road. And actually, it's really nice because it used to be really bouldery and stuff, but they've done some work on it and it's like smooth and it's dirt. And so it's pretty lovely. And so we took the road down and then we just took a nice rib down that got us down to the road. And so it was smooth. It was nice. And I just had a lot of fun on it. And I knew I was going to have a lot more fun on that than trying to go right off the summit. And also like being on crappy terrain right off the bat, it does do a work on your legs. So that's why also I was excited to take the standard route up Shivano because my legs are going to be shot by the end of this. So it'd be nice to just take some nice routes at the beginning before I just totally destroy my legs.
That's interesting. What was your mileage at the end of this?
Oh,
I don't. Well, I did have it on Strava. It said like 95 miles about.
Okay.
Was it in the 80s or was it?
My Strava said 95.
Okay.
So I'm not, but I don't know how. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, how accurate Strava is, but that's what it said.
Okay. Yeah. So some people have cut it down to 80 something, right?
I think so, but I feel like our route's pretty darn direct.
Our route is really direct. So
yeah, maybe Strava's giving her a little extra credit there.
Yeah, but I mean, we haven't gone into our track and actually measured out the mileage, and so that would be something interesting to do because I mean, it would be interesting to see like how long is our route? 89 miles, maybe. Yeah. You know, we just don't really know, and there's really no way to say for sure, like unless we go in there and actually measure it out.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I do think that Glenn, you know, if we go back and online, this guy Glenn might have thrown some splits on there with his estimates, you know, so I figure his are good enough for us. Yeah, well, we'd have to go check. Sorry, I don't know the exact.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I feel like Joey got it down to 80 something. I just talked to Laura Kaplan and her partner Keith, and I think they were over 100, but they made some route mistakes and whatnot. But no, that's all interesting. Okay, so after Antero, you switch pacers.
Well, her job, it was interesting. That was actually quite a flurry down there at that transition because, you know, where we were waiting up there at Baldwin Gulch, it was super busy. It was a Saturday. I've never seen that many cars parked down there. So we were actually parked way up the road from where she would be coming down. You know? And her job on that section was to not gain time on her splits. You know, her job, because we don't, you know, this is my thing, is like, we don't go too hard at the beginning. That's, you know, that's just standard. That's what everybody always wants to do, is they think they're having this great first day, but it doesn't mean nothing.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean nothing. It's, you know, because you're going to hit the night, you know, it's like, I mean, even when you're done with Princeton, I mean, that just doesn't even mean anything. That's just the warm up, you know?
Totally.
So we had these splits, and her job,
I mean, you're not even halfway done until Harvard.
Totally.
You know? I mean, that's the middle of the night, for crying out loud.
You do have to pace yourself.
Yeah. So we had these splits. We had our splits were 48 hours, and basically day one was Shavano through, we'll call it Yale.
Shavano through Yale.
Or actually,
we were at the bottom. We were at the bottom of Yale when it just got dark.
That's true. So, but in my mind, your job from Shavano through the top of Yale was just match our old splits, basically our 53-hour splits.
Okay.
That's all she had to do. And so I would have been a little worried if she was going too fast, you know. But anyway, she's moving fast, you know, like, so we get word you're up there, we don't have service, so we don't know exactly where she's at, right? But we did get word TJ and Jamie drove in, and they're like, oh, it looks like she's about 20 minutes ahead. So that's fine. You know, we padded her splits a little bit. So, you know, if she's coming a little early, that's great. But then, you know, so I started getting ready and you know, I just get this table set up, and Dan's up in his car eating. And crap, there they are. They're right there. Yeah. So she's here. And meanwhile, I'm like, I'm TJ, go tell Dan she's here. You know, and so she's right there, and she doesn't want to stop at all. She's just grabbing those and going. I'm like, oh crap, where's Dan? And
I know Joey's like, come on, I'll just take you. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, Joey was feeling good at the minute. So he was like, oh, I'll just do Princeton with you. You know? But fortunately, there's a little bit of road there. And so while they were walking over towards Alpine, you know, it's like we sent TJ, like, go get Dan. And so he goes, he rustles up Dan, you know, I'm in the van and I'm driving ahead of them. And now TJ's behind me in a different car with Dan. And so we're going to drive up to the cemetery, and that's where we're going to, you know, have him meet Andrea. But now all of a sudden they're gone. And like, I like behind, you know, I'm in the car, right? And I'm like, what the hell happened to them? And Jamie was with me, and she's like, well, we scouted this out yesterday and we took the wrong road. And I'm like, but he was right behind me. So now I turn around and I'm like, zooming back, I have no idea where they're at. So, I mean, I was kind of like panic mode there for a second, but it turns out that Dan had forgotten his phone. And so TJ had turned around, they went back to get the phone, and then they came back. So, I mean, it was like,
this is the first time I met Jamie. Like, so I didn't know Jamie before this. And so, you know, she's like, oh, hi, I'm Jamie, you know, like, and I'm like, great to meet you. Like, have fun figuring this out, you know? And so she's in the front seat with Andrew, and she's like, she tells me later on, she's like, Andrew's like, and what's your name again? You know, like, who are you? So, you know, it's cool. Like, we did place some blind trust in these people that we didn't know.
But so
sure.
it could have been kind of a disaster, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know right there, but fortunately,
I mean,
you know,
disaster.
they
I mean, not really. I was still fresh. So if I didn't have
Yeah.
anyone at Princeton, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. I would have been fine.
Maybe Joey just would have gone.
Or I could have gone by myself. You know, I was having a good day. And so it wouldn't have been the end of the world, but we're just super excited that everything kind of worked out.
Yep.
I'm Dan.
Okay.
So then they start up and you know, I make my way back to everyone that was left in support, you know, down there by the cemetery. And then we get there and it turns out Joey still had the support bag, you know? And so I was like, oh.
Which is like my sunscreen.
But Joey was like, go get it to her now. And so I'm like, oh, good grief. Okay. So now I'm like, you know, like 5 minutes behind him and I got it. I'm going to try to get it to him. And holy crap.
He sprints
I
like
really
so hard. He like burns his lip up.
Yeah.
And later I'm like, Andrew, why did you do that? Like, you didn't have to do that.
I almost gave up. You know, when I saw them at this switchback and kind of way up there, I almost gave up. But and then when they saw me, they didn't even stop for me. They just kept going.
I was like,
me as I'm trying to like
catch up. You can do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that was like, that's her dedication, you know, is like, I'm willing to sprint so she can have her sunscreen in her
Wow.
butt, you know?
Wow. Okay. Nice.
So then, off they go. So how'd Princeton go?
So yeah, Princeton was great. It was smooth. I don't really have much to say about Princeton. I told Dan, he was great. You know, I worked him hard for sure. You know, I was going about, at some point in time, he was clocking us at like 3,000 feet an hour. So he was struggling to keep up a little bit.
He texted his dad, who was like, I don't have time to stop and eat. but before that, he was showing me pictures. Like, he's so detailed about this stuff. He's like, well, I saw that your route went, you know, on the ridge proper here, but look at this beautiful grassy ramp, you know? And I I was like, you know, just do what you want to do. I mean, she'll be happy, you know?
So then, so getting up to Ridgeline, I paced us at a pretty quick pace. That was kind of like in my mind. I was like, I'll just get us to Ridgeline, and then it'd be nice to just, you know, once you get to the Ridgeline, a lot of it is on ridge proper. There's some little bit of route finding, nothing crazy. But I was like, let's just, you know, I'll get us to Ridgeline. You know, it's nice, like through the trees. I really like to not have to think. So he took us through the trees, which was great. I was just like looking at his feet, you know, doing the bushwhacking, fine. But I'm going to follow him.
That was another spot.
Really nice.
He was telling me he thought our route was a little inefficient and he had a better route. So I was excited for him just to like.
So I love that. Yeah. Like, I was kind of like, I kind of gave Dan the job of just like, you know, I'll follow you through the trees. You know, I like to just not have to think, because there you're just kind of like dodging trees and thinking like, oh, well, that looks better over there. I could go over here. It's kind of like annoying brain energy.
Totally. You know? Yeah, totally.
So then we got out of the trees, and then I took the lead, heading up the Little Rib, and then so I think he was that pushed him a little bit hard. And honestly, like, I mean, he just flew out from sea level, so he's pretty impressive, to be honest. And then, so that's when I was like, here, we'll just get to the saddle, and then you'll rest at the saddle, because I wanted him to survive on Yale. And then, and so then I summited, and then going down Princeton was great. It was such a great experience. We did great. He was a great leader, just kind of down Maxwell Gulch. You know, I was able to just follow him. We were following our line on the phone, our route. It was great. So,
you know, this was actually a key spot. So, you know, because, you know, she's always got me, and my glaring weakness has always been descending, you know. In fact, I think what it is like, you know, my uphill times have always been great, you know, and Andrea with me. But like the downhill times are slow, you know? So for example, I was analyzing, you know, Sabrina and Megan's splits along with ours back from 2020. And surprisingly, we actually had the better ascending splits by 1 minute over Megan.
Over Megan, 30 minutes over Sabrina.
30 minutes over Sabrina, but Sabrina ended up taking 6 hours off of us on descending. So there's glaring weakness there. 6 hours.
But 3 hours of that was our breaks, like cooking ramen.
No, that wasn't that. No, those were accounted for on ascending. So we were actually mostly on ascending.
Ascending.
Yeah, when we were going up. So actually we were a little faster.
Oh my God, are you serious?
So it's really, we were that weak. So this is
weak.
Yeah. So this is where
weak.
We've improved. Just, I think a lot of it was just, as people consistently set the bar higher, it's like, we all sort of see what's possible, and we have grown by watching other people go ahead of us here. Because I would have been like, man, someone's running like that on the downhill, they're not going to be able to go up the next mountain because their legs are going to be done. That was my old mindset. But now we know that you can. It's possible to run down harder, and
it's amazing. Like, we've definitely grown in the area where you don't have to kill yourself running. I mean, like we said in the last podcast, it's just letting gravity kind of take your legs down and just not working too hard, but just doing this little, Princeton, coming off of Princeton on the trail. I mean, we took how many?
Well, that was
like an hour and a half off.
Well, no, that's what I was going to say. We have a split from Princeton to the Colorado Trail. So just dropping, and then from there, you still have quite a long run out on the Colorado Trail. But we had given her an hour 55 for that on our 48-hour split, and she did it in like 1:10. So that was a 45-minute gain right there. So that was a big deal. Looking back, that was one of like the 4 big spots where she really beat her 48-hour splits. Yeah. So that was cool. Definitely.
Yeah. So we've definitely grown in that area for sure, of just kind of learning, learning our abilities.
Just what's possible, just being inspired by the other folks that are out there crushing. That's cool.
Anyway, it was kind of cool because we were down at this place called Indian Flats. That's where we meet them coming off the trail. And at that point, we're like, Dan could hop in the car and get like a 40-minute break if she's walking up the road. And we see, like, total shock is this guy Sully. Sully and his mom Chloe. And so Sully is a guy you really should you need to do a podcast on this guy, like the worst disasters in Nolan's history podcast. Like, that's
really.
Oh yeah. He's this guy, like, once he broke his ankle coming down and Antero, that steep direct way, and he just decided to crawl it out on his own. He didn't want to rescue, right? And then another time he was going to be the first person to finish under 50. Like, he was on Elbert or something with 40 hours. I mean, he was going so fast, but he wasn't on Elbert. He was on South Elbert because he had taken a wrong turn. And then he went straight off of South Elbert and then disappeared for hours. His tracker died. His girlfriend was calling, like, what happened to Sully,
I think I kind of remember this happening. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was a disaster.
And then another time he tried to do his skiing, and he got down to Cohesi Lake, and instead of the next peak being Huron, he like somehow got confused and went up Emerald, back in the other direction. So he's just had these like.
And then from there, he summoned another wrong peak after that.
So anyway, we met him one time, and he's a great guy. He's super fast, and
he's so fun.
And so he was there. He had seen what was going on. And so they came up to see us, and I knew Andrea was going to love to see him. I knew it.
He's so funny. We just love him.
Yeah. So we were all down there talking, reminiscing a little bit. And then, so it was cool. And so then she comes out, and she was able to walk up the road with Sully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're walking up the road with Sully. Dan's getting a break in the car.
Yeah.
The car drives up, and then you guys link back up and then head up Yale.
Yep. Head up Yale.
And this was a beautiful transition. It was like she just walks in, grabs water, she's gone. It was perfect. That's I had analyzed our splits when we did it self-supported, and we had like 3 hours of wasted time. And that was one of the big spots there, because we'd stopped to cook ramen and we wasted like a half an hour there. So it's like you love the free time, because to get her to 48 hours, if 3 of those were free, then we only really needed to take another 2 hours off somewhere along the way,
Now that was your Holy Nolans.
Oh, that was when we did Holy Nolans, and that was when we got our 53-hour time for Nolans.
So it's 53 when you did Holy Nolans. Okay, yeah. I'm just trying to put this all into perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
And remind me, so Joey Campanelli has the fastest known time. Unsupported, right?
He's 40 at 41 hours.
41. Okay. And now are you the second fastest time?
Yeah,
she is.
that's what we found out.
Nice.
We weren't even, none of us knew any of the men's times other than we knew Joey was approximately 41.
Yeah.
And, I thought Alex Nichols and Iker were in the 45 range, you know?
And then that one other guy.
Yeah, there's this Sean Van Horn guy.
Sean Van Horn,
he had the second fastest time. It's kind of sad because, you know, a guy like Sean Van Horn goes out and gets this amazing time, like, you know, sub 46, but it doesn't go on there anymore.
It doesn't show up on the FKT website because Joey has it.
Yeah, Joey's got
it. And so you know, he puts out a 45, but no one's going to see that because it's not a fastest known time. So we actually found out that I beat Sean by 5 minutes.
It was like 5 minutes.
Whoa. Okay.
So second fastest time right now.
Wow. Okay. That's crazy.
And we had no idea. I mean, that was absolutely not all these guys. We had no idea what the times were out there.
But at the end, that's one of my favorite parts of the story is when we get to the end. So we can save it for that.
Okay. Yeah. So at this point, the goal is still just under 48.
48 was the goal.
And honestly, in my mind, I didn't even 48 wasn't even like, it was kind of my goal. Like I put it out there as my goal, but I was just happy having the overall fastest women's time. So if I came in at like a 48:30, great. Like it didn't really click to me that I was trying to get under the 2-day mark. Like that wasn't really like my goal in my brain. I don't know. I just never really thought of it that way.
Had 48 though, because I wanted her to have a little buffer. And I knew if she failed, well, hey, she could have an extra 40 minutes at the end. That would be nice, you know? But in general, you know, with a lot of these, it's nice if you can really, you know, put an exclamation point on it. If you squeak by somebody's record,
it's not as exciting.
And you barely beat them. Plus it's like, you know, it's sort of doing a disservice to that person because you learn a lot from what they did. And so, you know, if you beat them by like 30 seconds,
you know,
it's kind of lame.
It's kind of like,
you know, you might as well just
totally.
Yeah. But obviously records get hard enough.
But it's cool, you know, records get hard enough where you are going to beat them by 10, 15 minutes. And, you know, because you're not going to be beating them by hours anymore.
So we would have taken it, obviously, but we wanted to beat it by at least, you know, 30, 40 minutes, you know.
For sure. And it was Sabrina's time that you were gunning for, right?
Yep. She did. Her time was super impressive. It was a 48:49.
Yeah. And have you been in communication with her at all about any of this?
No, I haven't.
We know Megan, and so
I've been in communication with Megan. Megan's pretty cool. Sorry.
Yeah, but we don't really know Sabrina.
I don't really know Sabrina. But it was cool. I did an interview with Megan, and she had contacted me through all of this and was super encouraging. So, and I'm friends with Sarah too, and Sarah Hansel, and she's we always joke with her. We're like, Sarah, your record is safe forever because I could never in a million years imagine myself going out on the Nolan's course by myself ever.
It's just
not my style. So I'm like, man, Sarah, I just really look up to her for just the grit that she can have and hold, just getting out there and being alone for, 50 some hours. It was just
no kidding.
So I really admire Sarah and look up to her for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Airplane Gully. You're fine.
Actually, let me just say, so we took a different route up Yale too for the first time. We tried lots of different ways up Yale. This time.
Well, so Joey had, when we were talking with Joey, he was like, he told us about Stephen.
I think it's Hughes Gulch.
Hughes Gulch. So
you guys have never been up Hughes Gulch?
No,
really.
We've taken this little ridge that's just to the north of Hughes Gulch, and honestly, that way's I think just as good. Maybe I give a slight edge to Hughes Gulch over the Little Ridge, just because Joey had a great point, which was
it is a good point. Yeah. And at first I didn't like Hughes Gulch because the point is that you stay lower longer, and so it's flatter longer. So the route, our original route that we usually take, it gets us up on the ridge, and then we join up with the East Ridge of Yale, and a lot of that's kind of like you're up high for a long time, and it's kind of like up and down.
Yep.
just
and
a
it can
little
get tedious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Joey's point was that you're at like 13,000 feet a lot sooner. And he said he starts getting stomach issues when he's up, higher. So the other route is sort of like you're down, 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 and then you pop up and then you go down. Whereas this way, sort of you get up faster. And so you're probably spending an extra half hour at altitude. And so, that's a point. I wouldn't have really thought of that myself, but that was a good point. But either of those, I think, are good routes,
Yeah. And I'm not sure which one I like best yet.
Oh.
Sure. I'll have to go out and see again.
I think time-wise, you get about the same time. I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so it took Hughes Gold Cup. Right?
Yeah, it took Hughes Gold Cup, and then it was great because at the summit we saw our friends Jamie and TJ.
I hadn't told her
Josh.
they'd be up there because I wasn't sure if they'd make it, So I was like, well, you guys, because they were going to go check out just the East Ridge, and so I just wasn't sure, but I was like, but if you get up there and you see her, that's a bonus,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was really cool. They were up there, and Riley was up there, so that was, it just really gives me a really fun high when I see my friends up there.
Totally.
And so they had liquid calories for me because that was kind of my thing. I was having trouble eating the solids. I don't usually ever really know what I'm gonna want on these big adventures. So I was loving the powder and the endurance and the electrolytes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they had that for me. Riley was up there taking some videos, and I was just really excited to be up there. And I was most excited that we summited at like 6:15, which put us an hour and 45 minutes ahead of our projected
split.
split.
On her split, she was going to be on the summit at 8, which is dark now, and so that was the thing, is just Yale can be tricky in the dark, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so to be there at 6:13 meant she'd get down the light, which
I was
great.
just so excited.
Wow.
I'm like, I can see where
That's
I'm going.
huge.
Like, we know where we're going. We get into the gully and we're going to just nail our line. We're going to get down to the river crossing. We're going to cross at the exact spot. And it was perfect because it all went like that. And right when we got down into like at the bottom of the trees before we crossed the river, we hear Andrew and he lets out
we knew they had to be coming down soon. So I just let out, woo! And bam, there they were right there.
It was amazing. I got so excited. I was just like, oh my gosh, this couldn't be more perfect,
Yeah.
So met up with Andrew. And then Forrest,
I guess technically we did have a slight break here because where she was standing there, because we had brought up some ramen for her to drink.
Yeah.
Like it was all in a cup. Andrea loves her ramen on these things, And so we had it in the cup.
I loved it. But, I didn't love it as much coming off of, you had to eat it all coming off of Missouri.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, so
is that the first solid food for the day? You said you weren't really doing many solids.
I wasn't doing much solids, but I was forcing myself. So I had packed
she was really loving these those cookies that are really soft that have like that thick thing of cream on top. Just the crap.
The shit cookies.
Man, she was loving those.
I was, and the best thing about it, they're like 160 calories a cookie.
Okay,
so it was so great.
Nice.
The night before we started, I had like 4 of them, and I was like, I just ate like 800 calories.
The night before you started, you're eating cookies. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'm like, it gives me the excuse to eat
really
bad.
Last time we talked, I think it was all spinach and salad. This time,
right.
It's all cookies.
I'm seeing the evolution here. I like it.
Well, let me my kidney stone. I was like, because I've been trying to eat healthier, and people are like, oh, you can't eat spinach. That's terrible for kidney stones. And I'm like, so throwing the towel. I'm going to eat chocolate cake. I'm going back to the cake diet. This is BS. I try to eat healthy. I get kidney stones.
Yeah.
So anyway,
what did you eat in the very beginning of the day between 3 and 4 a.m.? Did you eat anything?
Oh, when you first woke up, did you have anything?
3 and 4 a.m.
Yeah,
I ate cookies.
Oh, really?
Some more cookies.
This is the new Andrea. I like it. Wow.
She's not very consistent. Really just, you never know exactly what she's going to be eating. So we have to be prepared.
Okay. So cookies for breakfast.
If you're crewing, I mean, I appreciate that a little more after this experience, but the people are probably going to be little divas about what they're eating, and you probably have to be prepared, right?
Yeah. Well, and I remember thinking, I better not fail this thing, or I just put in about like 16,000 calories for nothing. So.
See, I was so inspired after our last conversation, and I've been cleaning up my diet, and I've been.
So look, I gave myself 1 week. I'm like, I can eat whatever I want for 1 week. And then like my body's craving some apples and some carrots, but I haven't really eaten that healthy this week, but I'm like, I got like one more day and then I'm going to be back on.
Back to it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Okay. So this thing was fueled by cookies. Okay.
Yes,
I got it.
It was fueled by cookies and liquid calories. And like, look, it was hard. I mean, I forced myself to eat the solid food, the bars that I was packing, but it was like so much effort. It was so much effort to chew. I just hated it. Like I didn't want to chew. I was nauseous. Like just, I've never really had stomach issues, which I'm super thankful for because I hear people going out doing this and they're puking on the trail. I've never had that experience, but I have gotten just like that nauseous feeling. I get nauseous.
It's hard. You're choking this food down.
Yeah. Not enough to vomit though. Like that's not the type of nauseous I get. I just kind of get like, oh, like I don't want any food, and it's like, and then you're just like, you just feel really gross, So I was trying to choke down Snickers. I was trying to choke down waffles. And I was eating gummies. They were going down a little bit easier, like those scratch chews.
Yes, I couldn't get you to take any of those when I had you, but maybe earlier she was.
Yeah, I was definitely eating some of those. But then nighttime came. My whole plan for nighttime for the ramen was like, okay, I'm going to eat a bunch before Columbia because going through the night, I'm not going to want to eat anything. So I've got to eat to get myself to get through the night, because you're not going to want to stop and eat. It's freezing. And then that's the other thing. Like I forgot my pants. And so I'm heading up Columbia and I'm feeling this wind. We get above the clouds. It's this beautiful inversion, full moon's out and it's like cold. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my pants, I forgot my pants. So that was kind of tricky because through the night, my legs were cramping. And I realized I was like, it can't be that I don't have enough electrolytes in me. I've been drinking electrolytes constantly. I'm like, that's not, but we realized that it's just the cold, kind of making my legs.
I'm not sure if we mentioned that actually. So coming into it, we knew, we just hit luck of the draw. There's this cold front. And actually it was a huge advantage because those hot parts of the day on like Yale or Princeton, they would have been 20 degrees hotter. They were so hot, so fortunately, like we were like a lot cooler there. So that was
I feel like I've lucked out on a lot of my record attempts this year. Like when I did the incline, it was like 60 degrees and cloudy the whole time in like the end of May. Like that never happens. So I just really feel like that we've just nailed it this year.
But the bad news was, and I was actually, as I was coming up to Yale, I was actually concerned because now it's my leg. Like I haven't felt great, after the kidney stone, it's a lot of pressure. And on our splits now, this was originally, this was our critical section because when she did the 24
let's talk about our splits for a minute.
Yeah. Well, so in the 24-hour record, actually, let me back up even further to when we did Nolan's together last time and we had a 53 hours. We took about 1150 to get from Columbia through Clohisi Lake. Okay, 11 hours and 50 minutes. And Sabrina and Megan, about the same. We were all right about there, almost 12 hours, right?
Okay.
But when Andrea did it in the 24-hour record, we did that in 6:55. And so we're like, that was 5 hours faster. So my whole strategy going in when we were doing the splits, because I'm the splits guy. Andrea, she doesn't sit here and do spreadsheets. She operates on emotion. So I do the spreadsheet, and then I tell her how amazing she is, and yes, you can do it. Like that's how she goes. She takes the emotion.
Like I don't care about the splits. Splits don't mean anything for me. Those numbers mean nothing. You have to tell me that I can do it 50,000 times, then I'll believe it.
So anyway, what I figured would be totally reasonable would be like, look, just where you can. Okay, so you match our old 53-hour splits. We're going to get 3 hours for free. That's not exactly accurate because we're supported. She is going to lose a little time when she's getting support, but it wouldn't be 3 hours. So I was like, that gets us to around 50 hours because she's supported. Okay, just because she's supported. Okay, and then now, granted, when we did on the 24-hour record, that one section, so it's the sort of, we call it the heart of Nolan's, it's right in the middle, Columbia through Clohisi Lake. There's 5 hours, but granted, now it's going to be dark and she's going to have been going for a day. So, but it's real. I thought it would be realistic for her to maybe get it in 9. So that was so there's another like 3-ish hours,
because we're accounting for the nighttime. We're accounting doing 5 peaks before that, and we're accounting for being tired. And so in my splits,
we were gaining a bunch of time there. And then all she had to do after Cohesi Lake was match our old splits again from the 53 hours. And that was how I got us to 48. Okay. So this was the key section where she had to beat the old splits. And we were coming in an hour and a half ahead. So things were looking good there. But this was still, according to our splits, this was the critical section. Right. And so anyway, we get going up there. And like she mentioned a second ago, this cool temperature inversion, we were in clouds. And I was like, oh, good grief. We have to do the Harvard Columbia. We're going to have to do the East Ridge of Missouri. And I'm not going to be able to see a thing. It's going to be all fogged in, but then surprisingly early, like around, I don't know, 12:05 or something, we just popped out. And it was like, full. Well,
it was amazing because it was like right after we were talking and we were like, gosh, we're a little nervous for the Columbia Harvard Traverse because we can't see a thing. We're like in the fog, and literally 2 seconds
where you
later,
turn your light on and it just reflects back in your face, right? So I was nervous.
Yeah, and then we pop out of the clouds, and it's clear as anything. We're like, what? This is awesome!
Nice. Full moon shining on this like sea of clouds there. I really wish that Riley, the photographer guy, had been there because he would have gotten some amazing pictures. Mine all was blurry.
Yeah, but and it was cool because the last video we have of me right there. I'm in like
she was in a good mood. This was the end. Like,
and I was like, this is so awesome.
And I'm like,
then
he's like, moving.
And he's like, how you doing, babe? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. And then that was kind of it for me.
Yeah. So anyway, so now we get on Columbia, and looking back, this was the beginning. So she had hit all of her splits before or beat them. We were in like hour 30, hour 45 ahead. And so now for the first time, but probably just because of the break down there, getting rum and stuff like that, we kind of missed the split by like 5 minutes. So it was the first time we've lost some time. But now it's cold up there. There was this north wind, and it was cold. And honestly, she says, well, I forgot my pants. Well, Forrest, Dan's dad had said, well, we should probably bring her some pants, But down there, I think selfishly, I was like wanting to lighten my load. And so I was like, she won't need those. We've been reading Wim Hof. We can take a little cold.
Cold therapy.
And I brought her lighter puffy. I brought a lighter puffy. I was just sort of went skimpy for her.
Yeah, I was like 0% warm.
So now, so we get up there and it's cold, but it wasn't like a disaster or anything yet, But now all of a sudden she's gotten tired. And so really quickly, being ready for that, I had brought 2 5-hour energies, And so I think very quickly I gave her hers, just hoping to wake her up. They make her nauseous. But so I made her, I thought she'd had the solid food, and unfortunately it just did nothing for her, so hers did nothing. So it just made her grumpy.
So I hit a low. I hit a low right on top of Columbia, and which is unfortunate because my low lasted until the summit of Huron. She couldn't snap out of it. I could not snap out of it. And so basically, I was just, I love the Columbia through Missouri leg. It's like one of my favorite link ups. I've grown to love it. I've spent a lot of time on that course with Andrew. But for some reason, I was just in my low state. I was nervous. There's 2 class 3-4 ridges on there, right? So the East Ridge of Missouri is class 4. And then the route that we take from Columbia to Harvard is the upper is the ridge line. And so the high traverse. And so for whatever reason, being in my low state, I was just nervous. And I just wanted those 2 sections to be done and over with. Like when I get nervous, and for no reason at all, except for that I'm really tired and I'm cold, and I know I'm not feeling my best. And so I just want those legs over with. So it was being on, having those 2 legs to do. And I think I was tired. I just couldn't snap out of it. So then we get over to Harvard and we do okay, but we're bleeding time now.
It was like, I wanted us to get a 1:45 there, which is a great time. I mean, honestly, I used to just aspire for a 2 hours from Columbia to Harvard, but in the day we had done a 1:24. So on our split, I had like a 1:45, but no, we did it in 2.
And we did it in 2.
So it's not a disaster. We lost 15 minutes, But this is the way the night ended up going, you know, because now we go down Harvard, you know, and you know, it's just harder. It's just harder in the dark, right? It's like you can't see things, like down in the trees. It wasn't as easy for me to like figure out where we normally go.
Yeah. So then we're going up Oxford.
And, you know, lost 15 minutes going down there. You know, now we're going up Oxford.
Now going up Oxford, and I love Oxford. It's like steep and direct is my jam, you know, like if I'm feeling sad, I know that I'll be happy on Oxford. And honestly, like Oxford wasn't bad for me. Not that I remember. I remember Andrew, I was right behind Andrew, and I know he remembers this too, but he was having trouble staying like one step ahead of me. So I was feeling okay.
I mean, it should be easy for me, right? I mean, she's been going for a day at this point, and I thought it'd be a little easier. It was easier than it was in the 24-hour thing, you know, but I was just barely staying a step ahead of her.
And so he was, but then that's kind of like when he was getting tired. And so when did you take your 5 hour?
Not till Belford.
Okay.
So we
summited Oxford, and then we kind of took a nap. Nap.
No,
we closed our eyes for 2 seconds.
Yeah, because it was freezing cold. Like the wind up there was so cold on Oxford. It was freezing. Yeah. And so we were running along the ridge, and there was one spot where we had a little protection
it was out of the
from
wind.
And so we decided to take like a 2-minute cuddle.
It was like, literally, it was probably less than 2 minutes.
And she was in a serious low. She's already like, now her mental state was, I hate this. Like, you know,
yeah,
this is
I wasn't,
awful.
yeah, I felt,
you know,
yeah.
And so she was really in a pissy mood. And so, you know, I was hoping a little hug would help her a little bit there. But it was like, I mean, it wasn't bad. You know, we were hoping to make that section in 40, and it took us 49, you know, so we didn't waste that much time there.
So the thing is about me being in these lows is what we found out is that I still know how to move. Like, even though I'm really miserable at the time, my legs still get the job done. They still work.
You know, you'll watch a lot of people, and myself included, like I've taken, like in winter, I was kind of sick, and it took me like 6 hours to get from, you know, Harvard to Oxford. And, you know, a lot of times that's, you know, your first night, and when you get destroyed, you just move so slow. Well, Andrea was basically there mentally, and, you know, her body felt like jelly at this point, but somehow she's still doing like 1,800 feet per hour. And, you know, and we would have just quit at any point if we were like falling like an hour behind the splits or whatever. Like, she's already proven she could do Nolan. She wasn't out there to just finish. She, you know, she wanted to hit these times, right? And so she would have just saved it for another time. Yeah. And so somehow she was destroyed, but still going that speed. And I really attribute that just to her over preparation. Well, I call it over preparation. For me, it would have been over preparation, but like just going there again and again and again, getting all those mountains, and her legs just sort of knew what to do still. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So then Andrew took his 5 hour on Belford.
On Belford, we took shelter again in this. There's a cool little, what do you call it? The wind shelter thing.
Yep.
It was protected. So we actually took another little break there, and I took my 5 hour energy. And man, for me, I mean, that was like
so jealous.
That was like a magic pill. I mean,
really?
Within 5 minutes, I was like, dude, I could have performed on Broadway.
Dancing,
you know,
I was like, singing. He was like,
I was like,
what?
I was trying to cheer.
Wow.
You know, I was really trying.
And
hard.
I'm like, he's singing like, oh my God, like the worst songs ever.
I don't know.
You took the wrong 5 hour energy. They should have been swapped the other way around.
Yeah. So, but the problem with that is like, so I have a couple thoughts on that. Like, now he feels responsible to get me out of my low. He's so happy. So he's using all of his energy that he has, thinking that what he can say and do is going to help me out of this low.
Trying to cheer you up.
When
Sure.
It almost makes her more mad.
But in reality, that's like, I feel really bad. And I'm like super humbled by this, because like, I almost feel like I was feeding my own low. You know, I was choosing to stay in this low. And as much as I didn't want to be in the low, and as much as I wanted to wake up and be happy, I didn't, and I couldn't. And I don't know why I couldn't, but it was really hard. Like, and then we got to Missouri's East Ridge, and you know, that wasn't terrible, but I was nervous. And so I was slow.
She was really unsteady. Normally we just zoom right up that thing, you know, but she was like testing holds, you know, that we normally just go right up. She was like testing, and she wasn't feeling comfortable with them. Yeah. So she was like, you know, stopping and,
Yeah.
It was just,
and I was
too long,
tired,
you know?
like my eyes, like I just remember just shutting them, and like,
and it's not a good place to not be, on.
it's not a good place,
totally.
Of all the places on the course, so one spot.
I'm like,
where
I don't
you
want to
better
be
not
falling
fall.
off the East Ridge of Missouri,
Right.
So anyway, so I remember back in 2020, it was kind of my nightmare all over again, because in 2020 on our failed Nolan's attempt in July, I had a horrible first night as well. And coming off of Missouri, I remember like Andrew super frustrated, at me, and it was all over again. And then our successful attempt in 2020 in August, I had a great first night. And it was because I was like mentally set up. I was like, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to have a great first night. I'm going to be happy. We're going to go into this and I'm going to be strong. And I thought that's how my first night was going to go. I thought it was how it's going to go, because in my last 2 record attempts, they were 24 hours. And aside from like the occasional low that lasted about an hour, maybe, like I was fine. And so I really thought that being ahead of my splits, being only 24 hours in, that I was going to rock the first night, but it really rocked me. And so,
I don't know.
You're having flashbacks to the failed attempt in 2020, and you're worried about the first night going south.
Yeah. And so I think all of this, and then, so we're going down Missouri, and Andrew keeps saying like, hey, we just got to wait till the sun comes up. Wait till the sun comes up. And I'm trying to believe that that's what I need. I was
stressing about the times, because we bled away all the time she had earned. And now we're coming down, and it looks like we're going to be back right on our 48-hour split. So that's good. I mean, we're still on the 48-hour split, but because we've been an hour and a half ahead and now we just gave it all back, now it looks really iffy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we'll get into that for a minute in a minute for like the last part of our splits. Why like it looked iffy, but it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But so then coming off of Missouri, like Andrew had his moment of like, WTF, I'm trying all I can.
I was frustrated.
He was so
I wasn't
pissed.
like right in her face. I was like up ahead, but I was definitely screaming loud enough that, she could hear it right there. And now she could really see how frustrated I was. And so that wasn't my shining moment, for sure.
And then I think I just got really upset. So we got down, and before we reached Dan and Forrest at our support point, I was just like, I wanted to be done. Like I didn't want to finish Nolan's, because I was like, if we're going to be getting mad at each other, like that's not worth it to me. I don't need to be doing this record attempt and be fighting. Like that's not why we're out here. And so I was like, I just need to cry, and so I just cried for like 3 minutes, and I just wailed, and he and I just
she was like, I hate this. This is the worst time of my life. I mean, she was not happy. She
good. Get it out. Get it out. Say it.
And Andrew, he was like, you're right. Like you can quit. You don't have to do this. This is stupid. If you're not out here and having a good time, then you don't need to be out here. Like you're not out here to prove anything. And he knew that I wasn't going to quit, and he also told me that I would totally regret it in 3 hours when I'm feeling better, like I would totally regret it. You don't stop when you have hours on the clock. I've learned that. So no matter what, you push through. And so then we got to Dan and Forrest, and
this is where I really wish you could see. I don't know if she's posted any of these pictures, but she looks like
I posted one.
Oh, she looks like she's aged 30 years. She's sitting on this rock. We've got a few puffies around her because she was cold all night, and like the bags around her eyes, and like her expression, she's just so unhappy. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, so we wasted a bunch of time there, about a half hour.
Yeah, and it was okay. That we still had like teeny bit of buffer. So it was like, if we I figured, well, we got a little bit of time here. Let's just use it, and then we'll be right back on the 48-hour split. Hopefully, when it gets light, we can move again. That was kind of the strategy there.
Yeah, and so heading up here on,
and those guys were great. It's funny because from Dan and Forrest's perspective, they came in and they see me. I'm like, woohoo! I'm still sort of off this high of the 5-hour energy, and they see Andrea just in there like, oh. So I'm not sure what they were thinking, but they probably weren't thinking she was doing so hot right
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think Huron was also really important because actually Huron, like, it seemed so slow. Man, I felt like I was moving at a snail's pace. And freaking the route you take, you go up the gully and it's just so rotten. So it takes so long. Like, I hate that. I hate it so much.
It's like so hard to find a rock that doesn't slide out on you. That's the whole thing. It's a game of and so I was always choosing these rocks that are on these incredible slants, but they're big ones. They don't look like they're going to move, but it's so slow. And I was just like, oh man, this is ugly. Cause I had us getting up in a 150 and, I felt like it was 3 hours.
Yeah. So we get to the summit and we're like not even looking at our split.
I was afraid.
But then we looked at our split and we did okay.
Yeah, it was like 2 hours from like
2
when
hours
we had left. So I was like, wow, we were like 10 minutes off of our 48-hour split now. So we'd given up a little more time, but it was like, it wasn't a disaster. And now she was like a little more awake.
Yeah. And then
what time of day is this?
It was morning.
It was
like
morning. 8:30.
Yeah,
we summited Huron.
Okay.
And that's when the rest of this became, I call it a death march, but in and of itself had its highs and lows. Yeah. So I wasn't in a consistent low. But it was hard. Each mountain, it took all my effort for sure.
But mentally, so from what I was trying to tell her, I was like, look, okay, so we're back to the 48. It's not looking good. However, I know that I had made the last bit of our splits.
So that's La Plata, Albert, and Massive.
Yeah, they were doable because I was putting in, like, looking back at our old times.
Not even doable, they were beatable.
Yeah, we had kind of a disastrous end. Starting right when we got off of Huron, we took this hour-long break.
This is in 2020.
Yeah, and it was in the heat. And it was like, we spent an hour at this tent, I was toast because it was so hot. So she was like cooking the ramen and, so we spent a lot of time there. And then we like waddled out of there like these stuffed turkeys. We'd eaten too much. We couldn't we
couldn't move. We were literally waddling out.
Yeah.
We couldn't move up that road to La Plata. Oh my gosh.
And then we got up La Plata and that's when it got dark. And so then we had an atrocious descent off of La Plata. Then on like Albert, I had spent 30 minutes like looking for our box, which I'd forgotten where I'd hidden it in the woods. Yeah. And then Andrea was like sleepwalking up Albert. But what I had done with the splits was I kind of removed the stop time, but I left the times alone. She just had to match the times.
Okay. Which were horrible.
And we were going slow and she's a lot faster now. So I knew that there was definitely, if she was just moving decent, that she could get some time back. Okay. So that was what I tried to tell her. And I was just thinking about it for myself. Here it is, 8:30 in the morning. To get 48 hours, she's got until 4 in the morning to finish. So that's like 16 hours. That's kind of daunting if you think about that. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to be out here till 4 in the morning and I feel like this. So I was like, just think about the next task. So right now we just got to get to support. Once we're at support, then it's just going to be La Plata. Just focus. Don't even think about Massive Albert. Just put that out of your mind.
Okay. Because I couldn't think about it. It took everything in me to just like, looking over from here on to look at La Plata, I'm like, oh my God, it's so far. Like, and going up La Plata, how am I going to do this? It just seems so inconceivable to me. Like I could not, it was hard, really mentally hard to imagine myself up at the summit. But what was great is that my pacers that I had with me, they really just helped me get to the summit of each peak. It was really helpful. La Plata was hard because, so this is where Jamie paced me. And
it was really good timing. She was the only girl there. And just after we'd sort of fought in the night and she'd been so negative, like she just needed a girl there,
Girl power. Yeah, for sure.
It's hard, doing this with all men. As an emotional human, like men aren't very emotional, right?
So like, I was like,
I just want some empathy. Like, no one gets it, just give me some freaking empathy. So like, I just wanted a girl to be like, oh, I love you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So it worked out. That's perfect.
Yeah. So Jamie, she came with me on La Plata, and she was really perfect. You know, I couldn't think. So I just wanted her to just be in front of me, you know? And so we got up there and I was like, I just want to look at your feet and not focus on the 4,500 feet of gain that I need to do for this freaking mountain. So she was really awesome. She made sure that I was drinking my water. She would spray me down. I loved, so from this point on, I really, really, really loved all the rivers because I would just drench myself in the rivers and I would literally feel like a new person. And when there wasn't a river around me, they started spraying me down with water. And that was like, it was game changing. I just felt so good getting ice cold water on me, you know, and like just being drenched. I just felt like a new person. So she really did a good job of taking care of me in that way, making sure I ate, I drank, and I peed. And like, so she felt successful. Like we were ahead of our splits. She was always updating me on our splits, our times, and everything like that. So she was a really good friend to have up there. And then, you know, super encouraging, like the whole time, you know, and it's crazy because like, you know, they'll be like, oh, we're doing great, we're right on time. But I never believe it, you know, like I never believe anybody, you know, that, you know, it goes off of our pace and goes off of our splits. Oh, we're doing good. You know, so it's like in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm not really doing that great. I'm moving really slow. And so until like we actually get to the summit and I am actually 30 minutes ahead of time or 20 minutes ahead of time, I'm like, okay, that's good. You know, and then I get really excited, you know? So then Evan was on top of La Plata.
Oh yeah, that was a surprise. None of us knew he was going to be up there, so he was up there to come down with them. So that was cool. But meanwhile, now from the support perspective, right? Well, Andrea had been, as we were walking down to the La Plata transition, where she was going to leave me, you know. So I stopped there, but Andrea had been like, oh, I have to have you on Elbert. You know, you have to come with me on Elbert because she was. You know, we had been talking about, well, what route are we going to do coming down Elbert? Because you can either drop down the ridge like we do, but we've noticed a lot of fast people have this like way that's supposedly a lot more scree. And so that would be nice. But
I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. But I've never taken that route. I only know the route directly off of Elbert, which is great. We've gotten down that route in an hour, but I mean,
we were fresh.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I get in the back of the van, you know, and they drive me down the road. You know, we've got some car shuttling to do, you know, and I get up. I actually fell asleep on that road for like 45 minutes. So that was, you know, I was tired. And then my legs were so stiff, like they were just, my quads were done, you know. So I was thinking, I was like, oh my God, like how am I going to do Elbert with her? This is not going to work. I mean, just getting out of the van, the thing's got this giant step, you know. And so Dan and TJ both, they heard me whining about having to do, you know, Elbert. And so they get on the phone because we knew Joey was still in the area, right? And so they're on the phone there and they're both talking to Joey sort of separately. And Joey's like, well, you know, I'm really not feeling that great, but, you know, maybe I could like hike up and meet her on the backside. You know, I could meet her at the summit. And then he was like, but if I was feeling bad, then I just wouldn't go up there. And I was like, oh, you know, that's a little risky though, because what if you didn't get there and then she gets there in the dark? She wouldn't know exactly where to go. I mean, she could take our route down, but
which would be fine. But again, it kind of reminds me like our route off of Antero. It's just loose and crappy. Like it's not my favorite. You know,
I really wanted her to have help there. You know, I knew how bad she was hurting and stuff. So in the end, they convinced him. Oh, you know what it was? It was like, I was, Joey, he kind of drove in. And so we were all we had regrouped kind of near the town of Twin Lakes where we could still have service and see where you were and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I just don't think I could do a sub 3 hour time, you know? And I was like, hey, look at the split, 4 hours. You can do a 4 hour time, right? Like, oh, 4 hours. Yeah, that's a piece of cake. You know? So then he was down, he was in.
Okay.
And, So then.
But those are like our padded splits, right?
So then it was like, for me, I was like, thank God, you know, thank God I don't have to go up again because my legs were not happy. And so then we had a new little a shortcut we were working on, and I had seen Iker do it when he was the first person to break my time going south to north, and I noticed when he did it, he had cut across the river, like so instead of going back to the La Plata trailhead on the way down, he just went straight across the river. And the problem with that route is usually the water is too high. You know, it's just not very good. Okay. But this time of year, I was like, it may be okay. You know, we had a lot of water, you know, this year. And so I just didn't know what it would look like. So we decided to check it out. And it was just like, this is where her crew, even though she wasn't there, really shined for her. Because like all the guys, we were like, you know, we found a good place where she could get across there, but we had to shift some rocks around so she wouldn't have to take her shoes off, you know. And so we were out there sort of getting it ready. And then Joey, he went ahead and he pre-scouted a way through the trees, you know, so he could avoid some private property there. Wow. And he pre-scouted that route. And then he was waiting on the opposite bank. I was waiting right there to hold her hand, you know, so she wouldn't lose her balance. And then meanwhile, we had other guys up on the trail just to let her know, hey, we're taking this shortcut. And so it was a total team effort, you know, just to help out right there. That's and cool. So it was really cool. And then at one point, Dan and I were talking, we were like, man, sure be nice if we had some walkie-talkies here, wouldn't it? And Riley's like, walkie-talkies? I got walkie-talkies right now. You know, so it was perfect. So have the walkie-talkie, you know, see Andrea come in. I was like, hey, Dan, okay, better get the stuff ready. You know, so then he drives the van down, you know, gets the water and electrolytes and all ready. So it was just really cool team effort right there, you know, just to save her, you know, 8-10 minutes, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
So then she gets down off of La Plata, and the good news is she took a good, like, she didn't take off a lot of time on the climb. You know, she did beat it by like 20 minutes. We'd given her 3 hours. So that was good. And then, but she took a good like 40 minutes off of that descent. We gave her 3 hours to get down to Echo Canyon. So now she's like an hour ahead, which is great. Because I really felt like Elbert was a pretty weak split in terms of like, she could take some time off at Elbert too. Okay. That's what I was thinking. I didn't think she could take time off massive, and she didn't, but Elbert was looking like she could. So anyway, so off she goes with Joey, you know.
Yeah. And that was good. Like, I mean, it was just like Shab, Tab, and Antero. You know, he's a great person to have pace me. He's really funny. We've got some great quotes that I just remember from us hiking together. And like, you know, one of our famous quotes, I was like, we're going to make a t-shirt. It just says, I'm off trail, but I'm on route. It's a state of mind, you know? And it's like, you know, it's a Nolan state of mind. You know, we're always off route, but we're always off trail, but we're always on route. And so he just cracks me up, you know? And I just remember him, like, he's so positive, and he's just telling me that, like, you know, I'm just hiking consistent. He's telling me like, oh, you know, like, you're definitely going to get 45 hours. And he's like, you're just hiking so consistent. You don't have to be hiking fast. And he just makes me laugh. So
he was saying 45 hours, but I was like, hey man, you're not looking at my splits, you know, because I had the conservative splits, right? So people were starting to get a sense that she could pull off this amazing time, but I was still trying to ground them back to reality and like be like, well, here's the splits I've got, you know, this is what she's trying to match, you know, so I wasn't trying to get super excited or anything, you know?
Yeah. And so Joey, he has this gift. He can talk your ear off and have the best conversation ever. I don't even have to talk. And I think that's just so awesome that like, he can just be out there enjoying my presence and just carrying the conversation. Or he's ahead and we're not talking and he's just, you know, so I just think he's amazing. And there was this one video that he took when we were almost at the top of Elbert, and it just makes me laugh because at the end he's like, and then just one more easy peasy massive. It's like easy peasy, like, come on, you know, but his attitude is just always so positive. So I had a really positive experience with all my guys, but you know, Joey, he just makes me laugh.
He seems like the superhero that came in and just really helped out when it was needed. So
yeah, just, you know, just having just that strength and pacing was really.
He is like, Joey is like next level. Like when he was talking to me for a while, he was like explaining to me how he doesn't even stop to pee.
Really?
And I'm just like, are you serious?
Like that is next level.
Never even crossed my mind, you know? I mean,
you have to train for that?
Right. I guess so. I'm not sure how to train for that. But,
so funny.
Yeah, I mean, he thinks of every way possible so that he will not be stopping and wasting any time, you know?
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, it's cool because all of us combined, just the amount of knowledge that we have on the Nolan's route all together is pretty mind-blowing. You know, we're all sharing each other's routes, we're giving each other advice, we're sharing each other's shortcuts, and that's pretty cool, you know, that, you know, how much work that we've all put into this. And so I just think that it was really pretty special for all of us to just be out there on the course together with all of our knowledge, really putting out the best time that we possibly could for me.
Yeah, totally.
Meanwhile, she's headed up, you know, Albert's, and she ended up taking probably a good 45 minutes off her split there. So it's like gaining like another hour there.
Going up on the ascent, really.
We'd given her 4, and I think she did it in the round of 3:15-ish.
Wow. Dang.
And so that was good. But so meanwhile, it was kind of complicated. We drove around all the support vehicles. TJ and Josh were in position to do massive with her. Dan drove up a dirt bike up this road to meet him right as they came off at Albert's. I was going to meet him and take him on this little like spot through the trees, just a shortcut to get over to Massive. And but man, it just that was when I was getting a little scared, because they kind of like disappeared. You know, once we went up there, we had no service. So it looked like they were like an hour from the summit of Albert. And so by the time we got up there, I was expecting that we'd be able to see him coming down, but Dan couldn't spot him. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? Did Joey have an episode, you know, where he couldn't go on? You know, I didn't know, did Andrea's tracker die? It was getting a little low. We were going to be recharging it when she got down, you know, as she was walking on the road. So I was scared, and there was no sign of him. It was crazy. And so I was super nervous. You know, I was like, oh my God, what's happened? I hate that feeling. And I know I put a lot of my family through this stuff in the past on all these records I've done. So I got some of that back, you know, like not just feeling kind of helpless. Like, what could I even do if they just disappeared, you know? And so anyway, fortunately, Joey showed her the scree way down.
That was really awesome.
I'd sure love to see that sometime.
I was having a ball. Like, wow, that was really one of my highlights. It was just, the terrain was one of my favorites.
And it was sweet because they got down, they basically got to do that descent in the lights, you know, and so
it was a big goal of ours, like get down in the light. Like, I mean, I think Yale and Albert were just really surprising, because I was supposed to be summiting both of those peaks in the right as it turned dark. And I got to the bottom of those peaks when it was turning dark. So I think those peaks are very similar in the fact that I got off of those peaks in the light, and that was huge.
Huge mental boost.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
What's that?
Oh, I was going to say, I had been a little nervous because when I left her with Joey going up Albert, she was still talking like she wanted me on Massive. And I was like, my legs aren't working, babe. You don't understand this, but my legs aren't working. I just
crave his presence, because there's a part of me that kind of is allowed to be sad when Andrew's with me.
That's what I would tell everyone. And she wants me there so she can be in a pissy mood, you know, be on better behavior with you guys. So like, I was happy just to stand back, let TJ and Josh take her up Massive.
But I'm like, he's my man, you know, like, I gotta have my man with me, you know. I'm like, come on, Andrew, it's my last peak. Come on, you have to be with me. You have no choice. If you don't come with me, you're in the doghouse.
So when I was going up to meet him up there, I was sort of mentally preparing myself just to go up there. I'm like, you know, I'll probably be able to keep up once my legs warm up. So she's probably just wants me to go do it with her. So I was kind of preparing for it. And then, but then, something kind of happened was like, my brain forgot, I don't know what my problem was, or it was the phone. But when I was just cutting through the forest there, trying to take the shortcut to the north or to the Massive trailhead, I started going uphill to the left, and I was like, there's no uphill on this part. It should be flat. And then, so my phone was acting all weird, like with where it was put in the triangle. So that was really annoying. So I kind of screwed up there a little bit. And then I took her phone and I did a little better. You know, I got us back. And, you know, so we get over.
I was like, just take my phone.
Yeah. So we got over to the Massive trailhead, and then that's where everybody was there. And I guess, who was it? Someone had said that, Dan had said that previously Andrea had been resistant towards taking liquids from her. So he was actually like, here, Jamie, you give her the stuff. I'm going to give it to you. So Dan hands the stuff to Jamie.
Oh, really?
Jamie hands it to Andrea, because Andrea will take it if Jamie gives it to her, but she won't if Dan gives it to her. So he had figured all this out. You know, and so now we're there, and we don't spend too much time there. But so now 3 of us guys. So we had me and then TJ and Josh, and this was the first leg. Even though they'd been around, they hadn't done any pacing yet. So we set off on Massive. Did I forget anything about right there?
So we're going on Massive, and gosh, TJ and Josh, they're also.
Well, she tried to get in that negative mood right off the bat. I mean, this was when Andrea really descended into hell. Like this last mountain.
Really?
This is going to be hell for her. But thank goodness that those guys were there, because it kept her from just really getting negative with me. Because she tried. She was already, oh, I hate this. And she was like, I'm hurting so bad. And she was like, when, there's at some point you're going up this valley and then you turn right to go up Massive. And that was taken forever for her mentally, and I'd be like, well, it's about a half a mile. And, and she, oh God, a half a mile. Oh my God. But the good news was with TJ and Josh they're both sort of like,
they're funny.
Runner guys.
They're Southern guys, and they're just funny.
TJ's got a good sense of humor. Yeah.
They talk and you laugh.
Good, TJ. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
So it was great. So I actually kind of went up ahead a little. Andrea kept being like, you're too far ahead. But I was happy to be up there and just let her talk to those guys,
Got it. Yep.
Because she was on her best behavior.
What was hard was that, like, gosh, looking up at the ridge line, it's all these ridge lines in the dark, they kill you, I swear. So they just look so far, and so you've got like 3,000 feet, you've got 2,000 feet, and it's just don't look up, because it's just so far, and they don't get any closer. You're going and you go for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, surely we're like 1,000 feet into this, and it's like, no, we're just 250 feet, no. So
I was basically counting it down every 250 feet or so. She wanted to know how much do I have left. And so it was like, I mean, 2,000 feet, it sounded like a lot there, but honestly, compared to what she'd done, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So
and then so finally we get to the ridge line, and then we've got the actual ridge to get to the summit, which is also hellbound. Like
it doesn't seem so bad if you're fresh, but man, does that have some false summits.
So far. And so actually we get to one of the fall summit, the second to last fall summit, or the last fall summit, and we think we're on the summit. So I sent out my summit message, and TJ's like, the summit's over there. And we're like, no! And
I was like, that one is way too far away. I mean, it looked like, I thought that was like North Massive or something.
So we get on the actual summit, and Andrew's videoing me, and he's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I'm so pissed off, like I can't even be happy.
Oh yeah, she was angry. She like throws her poles down. I mean, she looked like she was
like, I didn't even celebrate. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the kind of attitude I give my crew. Like, I'm such a bitch.
And what, you're at 42 hours or something at this point?
Well, at this point, I wasn't watching it super closely. But we were there, and we were going down, and actually, man, I just had a rough time leading everyone down here. I was trying to be out in front, like by, I don't know, like 100 feet. The idea being that if I screw up, I can get back on course and they can just follow me. And Andrea kept saying I was too far ahead, but that was the reasoning. I was trying to just get any mistakes ironed out.
It's interesting because, like, when he's going down, I'm like, God, I've done this descend so many times, right? Like I've never really wanted to be dependent. Like I didn't expect Andrew to be on this peak with me. Like I knew this route down. And so as he's going down, I'm like, God, I don't remember like going this far, like to the left. And like, we're contouring so far. And I'm like, Andrew, where are you going? And so then he's like, well, Andrea, you take the lead, and I'm like, okay, I will. But like I needed my poles. That was the whole thing here. Like my legs were really hurting where, I needed my poles. So I was kind of like letting Andrew take the lead so I can use my poles.
I mean, I just couldn't see anything. I kept going to the right and to the left and like not where she wanted to go. So it
took us a long time.
Yeah, it was taking a long time.
And I just remember,
I felt pretty bad.
Well, and he felt bad, but like, and like I I was not in a great mood. So I was annoyed, but then I was feeling bad because I'm like, they're up here for me. You know, I can't be in a bad mood. But like, I remember when I had gone out to do this myself, like I was down 3,000 feet in an hour. And so I'm thinking like, fine, let me just lead and I'll just get us down, you know? But then like my legs are hurting so bad. So then I'm like, okay, Andrew, you can take the lead again. You know, I'm just dying.
Yeah, we may have lost like a half an hour just bumbling around there, you know, 20 to 30 minutes, just because I wasn't finding the best routes, or we were stopping and then we were kind of arguing about a little bit where to go. And I'm like, well, why don't you take the lead?
Yeah, he's like, then you just take the lead. And I'm like, well, I need my pulse.
So anyway, but we're moving. And so then we get down to the spot where you enter the trees. And then, you've got to bust through the trees, and then you're going to hit the trail, and then it's out the trail like a little over 5 miles or something, right?
Andrew loves this part of the whole story. This is his favorite part.
This is the best part for me. Like, so
Not for me.
I look at my watch and I'm like, hey, we could break 46 hours.
So we've got 5 miles to go.
And Andrea's, she's in a bad mood, right?
Yeah.
She's hurting,
that's the last thing she wants to hear.
Right. And she's like, I'm fine with 46.
I'm like, 46 is a great number. Why do we have to go for 45?
And I had remembered when we were getting 43:15, which was my best time
53.
ever. Oh, sorry, 53. When we got 53 back in 2020. It was the same thing in the same area. I wanted to go for 52. And she was like, I'm happy with 53 because we only thought we were going to beat, we would be lucky if we beat 55.
Yeah, I'm like, we're totally beating our splits. Why do we have to push it?
And actually, that kind of shut her up, and the fact that TJ and Josh were like, oh yeah, we got to get 45,
Oh my God.
And so, but the bad news was it was going to be tight, and so, so anyway, right there is when we took everything from her. So for the first time, she had no pack. She had nothing but her pulse, and then I did much better just putting the phone down, which I swear when I was looking at the phone, it was like shifting 90 degrees every half a second, before so I just put it away, just, did the best I could, just, busting through the trees. We got down to the trail and then we had to run, I can't remember how much time we had, but it was like, I knew it was going to be tight, which is always her biggest nightmare, is to have something be close like that.
I hate that. I hate the pressure. Like, as from our last conversations, like I just don't like coming in like tooth and nail, you know?
She wants to have good 20 minutes, easy peasy, no problem, but it was going to be tight. So, and this is where, oh man, it was great because now we're running, and now granted, she wasn't running that fast right here. We've got like a couple of miles to get to the Colorado Trail, and her whole body's hurting. I mean, my body's hurting, I'm hurting. I had just done 7 peaks too. I just finished 7. So I was hurting, and so now she's jogging, and we force her to jog all the downhills. But any uphills she was allowed to walk. All right. That was the deal. Okay. So we'd hit an uphill. I'd be like, okay, you can walk. Yep. And then I'd give her a countdown from the top. Okay, we're gonna run in 5 seconds.
And then Josh, he's like, all right, get ready, go.
And then so I was up ahead again, and Josh turned into the ultimate drill sergeant. Like, he was not taking any shit sort of person. So if I said move, he'd be like, move, go. If Andrea was like, why? He's like, you don't get to walk here. And it was,
I mean, I say that I have never been pushed so hard by a group of men in my entire
life. If I had
ever
taken that tone with her, we would have.
It would have been over. Would have been over.
Right. That was not happening. But TJ and Josh got to be the drill sergeants, and it was great. However, we were still going a little slower. Like at one point, TJ is like, great job. We just did that mile in 16 minutes. Like later we were talking, and at that point, 16 wasn't going to cut it if we did that all the way down. So, he was trying to be positive.
So like my turning point to where I really picked it up was when I thought I was running, and I look over and TJ's right next to me and he's freaking walking. And I was like, if I'm going to beat my body up running, I mean, I'm sure as hell not going to do it at a walking pace,
You're right.
And I told her, I was like, just run, it'll numb out, and it never really numbed out, but it does get a little less painful.
It gets a little less painful. So it like kind of did.
But it's still painful. Like every step, if you think about the shake in all your muscles, like
it was just a shock going through my body with every freaking step, and it just didn't get better.
But those last 3 miles, even though they still were only like 12-minute miles or something like that, it felt like we were all just sprinting down there reckless.
Sure.
What it felt like,
Right.
And so she didn't get a break in, and she was just in hell. She was basically crying, moaning and groaning the entire way down. And I was honestly like, when Dan had been hiking up to see us and he started running down with me, and I was like, I don't think she's ever going to forgive me for this. Like she's going to get down and so anyway,
so then we finally finally you can see the lights at the fish hatchery, and I can hear my crew, and so we get really close. The boys take the back, and I finally it's 10 more steps, and I hear everyone cheering and yelling and screaming. And so it was just, and then, so I come out, I stop my tracker, and for I just wanted to fall to the ground for 3 seconds. And so I just fall to the ground, and I'm just oh, that sucked. I hate my life. And then, I got a chair, and everyone got me a blanket, and then we just kind of sat around, and then I really got to be wow, that was the most incredible experience I've ever had in my entire life. And that was the hardest experience I've ever had in my entire life, but it was so worth it. The intimacy, just the closeness with everybody, just that it was just amazing.
I felt so close with everyone too. And it was the way that the team came together to extract every last second she was.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it was just really cool. The amount of suffering and the amount of just passion that everybody had for me to succeed. I mean, that's really rare. To have a support crew that cares about your success that much. I mean, it's just so unbelievable.
Or maybe that's normal. I don't know. This was one of our first experiences with that, but it was awesome.
No, because we've seen other people crew for others, and it's just, and I've seen other teams crew, and I just feel that we do have a special team, and we did have a special team.
Yeah, and I feel they're all going to be we've got this lifetime bond with these guys, just because it's you're
100%
the pits of despair, and we all pulled together to get her
together. Yeah.
So it was, and
that's
then
friends for life right there.
For sure. Yeah. And Joey, I mean, just getting to do that with him and see here's the master, here's the true master. What he was actually he was sort of already thinking, I mean, Andrea had it bad, she maybe could have had him sweating a little bit. We were what if you were in a good mood in the nighttime? My gosh, we might have been a couple hours fast.
I'd say that I have about an hour and a half to take off of that time, probably.
Yeah, she'd have to be in
really.
Yeah. Okay. So for Joey, he wouldn't have to sweat it too hard. Plus, Joey,
he's coming back, and we're gonna support him.
Joey
really?
Now, he learned from us too, because he had a couple spots. I swear I've saved him an hour of just shortcuts that he didn't use. So if he really wanted them, he could go. He could maybe beat 40.
And I would love to see that happen, honestly. I was if you're coming back out, we're gonna be your first time.
Although I don't know, he would need
support crew.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd need that because he's so fast anyway.
Yeah,
but who knows?
Is he thinking about it this year?
No, not this year.
Okay. Okay.
No. Yeah, not thinking about it. But it was kind of funny. There was one last thing to this story, through all that, was we got down there and her phone was missing, her phone was gone, and she had been using it, when we were navigating down, and I was having trouble. And then at one point she'd had it in her hand. And so she kind of remembered the last time she'd seen it, but then it was just gone. And it was man, the way we had taken her pack and just were pushing her, everyone's focused on running. Where could it be, So we all felt kind of bad, but at that point she had to go to bed, and so anyway, that night Dan actually went up. He hiked about 10 miles up the trail looking for it, couldn't find it. So that morning, Josh headed up, Joey headed up.
Yeah, it was amazing. The amount of work that they put in after all of this to go find my phone.
And then I headed up with Forrest later. And so anyway, we did find the phone.
Really?
Yeah, we did find it after about 75 miles between all 5 of us. That's how much effort we put in to find that phone.
It was amazing. Wow.
So
I mean,
goodness for that.
Unbelievable.
That would have been kind of a bummer.
Where was it? Had you just dropped it somewhere? Did you set it down on a rock?
There were 3 spots I was hoping it would be, and one of them was right when we got to the trail. That's where I had originally remembered removing her pack, was right when we got to the trail. But another spot was, I know we had stopped and I had remembered doing something with her right before we entered the trees. And then there was this spot kind of up in the grass on the way down from the summit where she had remembered seeing her phone. Okay. So you know, we went up, like when Forrest and I were going up the trail, even though like 4 sets of eyes had already seen it, like I was taking the left side, he was taking the right side, you know, whatever. We were, you know, any bushes, we were moving out of the way, hiking up there. It was really hard in the trees because I really had no way to know exactly where we were. You know, it was really hard. So, but anyway, it was in the spot. It turns out Josh remembered that's where we took her pack. So where we took her pack, I think I probably took her phone and probably thought I was sliding into my pocket. I probably just missed. And it was kind of just laying there in the grass, you know? So anyway,
That's a miracle. There's been a lot of phones lost up there.
I know.
That was a miracle.
Like, it was amazing just because like, it's really stressful after a record attempt like this to be missing your phone. I mean, I had 85 text messages. Yeah. I had all these pictures on there. I had updates to give people. Like, it's just really unfortunate if you lose your phone. So, I mean, I totally like, man, they were amazing to go out there and find that for me. That was really awesome.
You had the best crew and pacers you possibly could have had.
I know. I'm so indebted to them.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, congratulations. I mean,
Thanks,
it's just
man.
an astounding time. And to think that you could even take an hour and a half off of that is just mind blowing to me. But yeah, I mean,
it's all speculation, but man, she was just in such a bad mood in all the night. And you know what I discovered when I did the splits? The one common factor was of every, no, this is a fact. This is a fact. Every single leg that she lost time on, according to your splits, guess what? I was there. So every time I was not there, she made up time.
Okay.
But you have to take into account
next
that
time I am sitting back.
He was with me. He was with me on the hardest legs. That was the nighttime. So
for sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you guys still love each other. It could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Wow. What a time. You're just never going to forget this. I mean, this is something that's going to be with you forever.
Oh, yeah. And I've been in like all week just thinking about it. It was just such a good experience.
Yeah,
you know?
It really
just
was.
Like the whole crew thing, just everyone really pouring out everything they could for her. It was just, man, it's just like left me. I don't normally have this sort of a feeling afterward, you know? So anyway, it was great.
I mean, it's just, you know, going back and thinking about it and rereading. And, you know, I came back and I did a write-up, you know, while the emotions were fresh, and it's the longest write-up ever, but it's just really cool to have the account while the emotions are fresh.
I mean, it makes me cry when I read it, you know, it brings tears to my eyes, you know, because I remember the pain she was in all night long and how horrible it was, but she stuck it out, you know, and her legs kept working. So, yeah.
And even the drill sergeant guy, as much as you hated it in the moment, you probably got the fish hatchery, arrested for 5 minutes, and turned around and thanked him because
I was
there
like,
for you.
45 is a pretty cool number. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you're going to do some resting. I hope you're going to take it easy for at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I bought a chocolate cake and she ate half of my cake. I was
good. You earned it. That's good.
That's right. I was like, yeah, you better, no food is safe from me for this week.
No kidding. Okay. So cookies and cake.
That's right.
Yeah. I love it. See, I was all inspired after the last time we talked. I was on this single ingredient diet, but now I'm switching it over to cookies and cake.
Look, you can talk to us when I'm training in like the spring of this coming year. Then I'll inspire you again to be really healthy.
For sure. Awesome. Well, listen, guys, thank you for sharing this and for sharing it here. I can always just listen to you guys over and over again. And just the fact, like, I think I've had you guys on more than anybody at this point, which I absolutely love because you guys are just out there doing it. You're doing that many things. So
yeah, well, thanks a lot. And we love talking with you. We love recapping with you. And I know we get off track and we don't let you talk too much. So thanks for just letting us share our story and just be on here. And we just love it. And we always look forward to being on here next time. And, you know, we always are like looking forward to our next adventure and then looking forward to talking to you afterwards.
That's so cool. I appreciate it so much. And you guys make it so easy for me. I can just sit back and let you guys do it all. I love it.
So we had a reporter over that was going to do an article about her, and he had just listened to our last podcast, you know,
on Do Big Things. Yeah.
So he was like, I know about you, Andrew, how you interrupt and you take us on tangents. So I would like start talking, be like, nope, you shut up.
Yeah, because we told him, we were like, look, you know, sometimes we talk too much, or like where we go off of tangents or we go off topic. He's like, oh, I know, I've listened to you guys.
We'll put Andrew in a separate room for this one. No, I love this. I love it, man. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing with me, and take a break for the rest of the year, for God's sakes. I doubt that you'll do it, but yeah.
Yeah. We've got a couple other plans coming up, but it's a little while out. So
okay.
You know, we like our biking season. Biking's coming up, so at least we have, you know, we've got some rest coming up.
Sweet. Well, keep me posted. I love hearing from you guys when you're like, this is what we're thinking. It's coming up in a week, and I'm like, oh God, I love these guys. So
man.
Just keep it up.
Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate
Absolutely.
being on here, and
anytime.
We look forward to talking to you next.
Congrats, Andrea. What an amazing accomplishment. Yeah.
Thanks.
Soak it up. Live it up.
Thanks so much.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
See you later.
Thank you.